All right, welcome back into Preacher in the Hat. My name is Derek. Across from me is Eric and Steve. Behind the cameras is our man, Chris the Sumpman, Sumter. I've been thinking about could we get a cool way to bring us back into the podcast, and I'm wondering, Chris, if we can get the rights to that Welcome Back theme song from the 70s. Welcome back, welcome. You think you could get us that? Okay.
Well, there you
we're
go.
We're gonna try to have that for you next time. Just probably a few $1,000s from that. I don't know.
No big deal.
Last time you heard my voice or saw me over the camera, depending on how you consume our podcast. I was a man who had not almost burned my grill and house down.
Oh. I haven't heard about this.
Since that time, and now as you are hearing me or seeing me on this podcast, again, depending on how you consume, I am a man who has burned his grill.
Well, I'm
and
glad I
almost
came
his house
tonight
down.
because I haven't heard this story yet.
There's a couple morals to the story, and I'll lead with those, and then we can go from there.
Please.
Moral of the story one, it does pay to have your grill on some sort of concrete or non-flammable foundation.
Well, there you
which
go.
mine was.
There you go.
You know, so bonus for me. You should probably also keep it more than a couple feet away from your home, which mine was not.
Case in point.
And lastly, if you feel when you open the cover that you're like, man, I need to clean this grill, you should do it.
That's
the main one.
real
That's
moral.
the
For more
main
grilling
one.
and fire safety tips, please
Yeah,
contact.
exactly.
Follow Griller in the Hat.
Yeah. Well, we'll get a couple. We could get it. We should have had a fire department on for this one. I didn't have to go that far. I didn't have to call anybody. I did have a couple neighbors standing in the driveway with me, watching it burn. Yeah, as we debated what to do.
Watching the grill burn.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
It literally. So it got so hot that. So all right, I'll go a little bit of a story here. I'm not going to take up too much time with this. It's a pellet grill, which is the main focus. Generally, is indirect heat of a pellet grill. So you usually, when you open it up, you don't see an open flame.
Oh.
All right. I had just finished. I did chicken wings that night. They were incredible, by the way. That's beside the point. But I did chicken wings and I'd taken them off and I went back outside to shut down the grill because it's electric. It's, whatever. I'm not.
Yeah,
gonna go on.
it does run off.
It runs off
electricity.
some power, off electricity. So I went to did the shutdown procedure, and I was talking with some of my neighbors outside and realized it's still smoking over there, which is a periodic thing that it does. Not so. I noticed for a while, and then I opened the grill up, and boom, there's an open flame in there. I was like, oh man, that's not good. Well, I noticed some of the things that I should have cut out or that I should have cleaned out before we went.
Debris. It was burning
some
debris.
of the debris was
Okay,
burning.
gotcha.
It was like, all right, well, you know what? I don't want this big flow of oxygen on here. I'm just going to shut this. And about that time, I guess that it had received enough oxygen from when I opened the lid to really do some damage because it started to creep out the crack and the opening from the cover
From the door, yeah.
to the outside, and the fire was so hot. I don't know how hot it was, but it had to have been over 700 degrees easily. It began to melt away the exterior coating on my grill.
Wow.
Okay.
Which has
Yeah.
which
Wow.
it's kind of like it helps it be like waterproof and and it's really like it stayed nice. You can wipe it down. There's no rust, all that stuff or whatever. I've had it for like 4 years. Don't put a cover on it. It's not out all the time, but it is some, and it's it's still in great shape. And it was literally melting away. And I went inside to get like a little bottle, just like of some water. And by the time I got back out, I was like, that's not enough, and had to cut the hose on. Opened it up, sprayed it inside, like all the way down.
Wow.
It's and it took away some of the interior or whatever. Like now, what was a great grill that I've used for a long time. Like I love, like I told you, 4 years, and it could keep going. Is now going like inevitably going to start rusting soon because so much of that.
But still
coating is
working?
gone. I have not used it again. I have to intensely clean it now. I made myself what would have been 30 minutes of work. I made it hours.
A little bit of a good news, bad news on that here. Yeah. Bad news. You might have ruined your smoker.
Yeah.
Good news.
You get to get another one.
I guessed
it. Right? I guessed it.
Catherine, if you're listening.
I'm sorry, dear. My smoker burned. I'm going to have to get a new one.
Well, yeah. So funny
Due
thing
to
is,
my negligence.
Yeah, Catherine was on the phone, and so when she for a while, and when she got off, I was like, we were sitting down to eat dinner. I was like, so I almost burned my smoker down. She's like, what? What happened? And I told her that story, and she said, well, if you would have just let it keep burning, you could have gotten a new one. I was like, well, come on.
Hold on, I gotta go light up.
Yeah, hold up.
Excuse me a moment.
Yeah, let me go see if I can reignite that flame.
So, are we supposed to grieve or rejoice here? Which is
I don't know. I just there's really no reaction for you guys other than to just say, be safe out there, kids.
Be safe out there, kids. And just when I was going to get
you never know when your neighbor's cooking wings, and it might be me.
Just when I was going to get a pellet grill, now I have to reconsider.
I still highly recommend them.
Are you going to get a pellet grill? Because that would excite me.
Yeah, I was going to say we could do a whole. I'll do a whole episode on pellet grills if you guys.
I've been debating.
We can. I am willing to lose a lot of listeners talking about pellet grills and smoking meat, including my wife.
Yeah, probably. I was gonna say we would lose mine. She'd be out. So
we'll have to get you in on that. That we can have that discussion after we finished recording.
Yeah, we'll go off camera.
Well, obviously, this story is so much more important and central to anything we could talk about today. So.
Yeah, except for the people that we can't hear right now who are begging us to
please
move
forward.
Move on.
Yeah, including our producer.
Yeah.
So I've been reading a book lately. I'll completely turn and for those of you who just got wide-eyed, yes, it's true.
I was going to say I don't know if I can get my eyes that wide.
Am I okay? Well, I really don't know. But
like a real book, or like
it has pages.
Like it's pages.
You turn them. Yeah, it's made out of paper.
Wow,
yeah.
It's made out of paper.
Yeah,
a paper book.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my wife and I went on vacation to the beach, just us, no kids this time, and we're sitting out there under the umbrella. Towards the end of April, so great weather. If you go to the beach around that time. And I'm just laying there chilling, put my phone in the bag, so I'm not even looking at my phone, just relaxing. And she hands me a book. I was like, what? No.
Way to go, Michaela.
She was
Good job.
I can't remember exactly what you said, honey, but it was something like...
you read this?
Yeah, it was. I felt like it was pretty direct, not like, oh hey, I loved this book. Do you want to read it? Although she was very kind. Yeah. In my memory, it was a little bit more like you're reading this.
Yeah.
I don't think she did it that way, but
I'm glad it came across.
I did. Though. She did it very well because I felt like I had no choice but to read it. So. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by a man named John Michael Comer, and I hope I pronounced his last name right. He is someone who's been mentored by someone who was mentored by Dallas Willard, who, if you have spent any time in ministry around Dad at all, you've heard the name Dallas Willard.
Yes, you have.
So,
and if you haven't, listen now.
Yeah.
Dallas Willard.
Here we go. Anyways, so I just wanted to plug that because, like I said, for those of you who know Dad or spent time around him in ministry, you've heard him talk about Dallas Willard, and maybe we can talk about some Dallas Willard works and ideas at some point. Anyways, this book is called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and it's basically the idea. I mean, the title says exactly what it means. It's not it's not holding anything back. It's how do I get rid of everything that makes me feel like I always need to be in a rush, and what do I need to take away from my life to get out of that rut. I have not finished the book. I'm about halfway through, but one of the things it's an idea that has struck me probably over the course of the last 5 years or so, something like that. I would say that's really just a guess. I'm not totally sure exactly what it's been for me. But really like being someone who knows they have like an addiction to screens, and part of that I can't help because it is my job to sit at one, for 8 hours a day plus. And so then your phone just kind of like becomes an extension of that. Well, anyways, in the book, that's a lot of what is. You kind of find out, not that I didn't already know, that's kind of like a lot of times it's the source of what makes me always having to go do whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's something, like I said, it's something that I have been aware of, like for me personally, for a long time, and done a lot of things, put restrictions on like the amount of time my phone can be open, or things like that I've done, and I know there's a lot of people, and probably a lot of you who are listening, to the podcast, who are struggling with things that make us feel like we cannot slow down, that we always have to keep going. One of the most striking stats from the book to me is like, do either of you know how much the average person slept per night?
I don't.
Before the light bulb was invented.
I do not.
So right now it's about 7 hours.
Got you.
Maybe 7.5. What do you think it was before the light bulb was
10.
invented? Derek?
I guess 10 on the high end. That 10 seems
11.
high. Yeah, wow.
Wow.
We used to sleep.
I obviously was born after the light bulb because
Yeah.
I've never slept an average of 11 hours a night. So
That sounds incredible.
that's pretty crazy.
That's going to bed at 8, waking up at 7.
Yeah.
Going to bed at 10, waking up at 9.
Yeah. Got you.
I haven't done that kind of thing since college, maybe actually high school. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it struck me that like all that we have done, not all that we have done, but the biggest change that we have made in our lives since then is just continually trying to fill up more and more space in our days with more things. But we now have more, sleeping 7 hours a day, we now have more hours available to us in a day than we ever have as human beings in the past, yet we feel like we don't have time to get anything done. Yeah. And is it because we're out of time, or is it because of everything we have like jammed into what we're trying to do?
There's a new field that I'm aware of, at least new to me, in micro learning. They're talking about micro learning, and one of the things they talk about is that the attention span of most human beings today is 1 second less than a goldfish.
That's in that book as well.
1 second less than a goldfish. Is it 7 seconds or 8?
It's
I think
somewhere
it's 8.
between 7 to 10. I think it's 8 or 9.
And when you think about that attention span for 7 seconds, that's probably a consequence of years and years and years of busy, fast, got to get it done. And so we cannot stay too long on one item because we're seen as slow and so forth. Saban just recently said.
Nick Saban.
Nick
for those of
Saban,
you.
yeah, excuse me. Thank you very much. Nick Saban just recently said about retirement that for the first time in 50 years, he's not in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
I just read that this week for the first time, and he said it's unusual, it's different, but nice. because he said I was always in a hurry. Always in a hurry.
So we get stuck on what we think we're going to accomplish or where we think we're going or whatever it is. So how do we stop thinking so much about the destination?
Well, I'll tell you what.
and
It starts
enjoy
with
the
me
journey
it
too.
started with me in driving. It's some years ago when I first understood just how horrendously I violated this thing of don't hurry when it came to work, because
Michaela, this is where it comes from. This is where I get it.
yeah, you've come by it honestly if you have this, believe me. So I was always concerned about the destination and being there at a certain time and so forth. When GPSs came along, it became a worse problem for me. You want to talk about being uptight, is because I got on these old GPSs used to put up on the,
Now they're on your phone.
they're on the phone, but they were up on the dash and so forth. And so it would tell you when your estimated arrival
Expected to
time would be.
arrive.
I'm going to tell you what, that sucker was a curse for me, is because all it did was highlight what I had already done all my life. And that is, when I'm on the road, I can only think about how much time is it going to take me. How few stops must I make? Now, you gentlemen here might remember it as fleshing out with, we pretty much didn't have time to stop and go to the restroom.
No.
In fact,
Run
if
to
we
the
may-
woods.
If we may, yeah, or just stand out on the
Yes,
van.
yes,
You know what I'm
stand
saying?
out
Off
the
to
side
the
of the
side,
van.
off to the side of the van. So there's twin boys. You're 3, 4, 5 years old, standing on the ledge of the van. Because we didn't have time to stop at a gas station.
Get this. On the long stretches,
Yeah.
you and Mom
Yes.
switched drivers without ever changing speeds.
Oh, we did do that.
Forget
sometimes.
stopping.
We did
All right,
do that.
Forget stopping. Y'all
Oh,
switched.
man.
You're like, oh, it's my turn to drive, and they changed while the car was in motion.
Wow. Can I say that's maybe illegal and certainly unsafe?
Yes. We
Don't
do
try
not-
this
we-
at
we
home.
do-
This is for
Preacher in
professionals
the Hat
only.
does not endorse the following behavior.
Professional hurriers only. This
Yeah.
is for professional hurriers only. That is how ridiculous this hurry thing was for me. And that was ridiculous. This thing about I've got to reach a destination at a certain time, at a certain point. If I did not, I became frustrated. If I saw I lost 5 minutes, 10 minutes,
This
15
is hurting me
minutes.
on a personal level because Michaela and I just drove. It was about a 5-hour trip for our beach vacation. And every single time, the first time we get back in the car and I fire back up the directions because I don't know how to get where we're going. So I
right.
need the directions. Right. And my very first thing is we lost 7 minutes. It's like, of course you lost 7 minutes. You stopped to pump gas. It doesn't take 0 minutes.
So we were like a NASCAR pit crew before there was NASCAR pit crews. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I
you gotta
remember-
come into the gas station. Be sure y'all run and get out immediately. Run into the gas. Use the restroom while I'm filling up because we didn't have time to wait to.
I gotta tell this the first time because I was conditioned by you with
were.
that in that. So Dad would tell us before we got off the interstate that we were stopping.
Well, that's true.
And then so
you could get your
you would be like, get your
shoes
shoes on, be ready. If somebody was asleep, you wake them up, whatever. The first time I rode with Michaela's family, I hear, they're kind of her parents are kind of talking up front. It's like, I think we're going to stop up here. I'm like, okay, cool. I get ready, get my shoes on, get out of the van, get out of the van. I'm good. I'm stretching. Look around.
Nobody's there.
It's just me. Look back in. Everyone in the van besides me and her parents who were in front are still asleep. And I was like,
Oh.
well, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Maybe grab a drink.
This is awful. Now,
But I was so that's what you do on trip. Like that's what you do. On
Can
trips.
we make a decision not to air this episode here
it has to
before
go.
I confess everything?
It has
But
to go.
it is such a real live view of an inability to enjoy the journey and only the destination. And it took me a while to realize this, as you guys know, and I clearly did not overcome it prior to you all leaving home. I don't think. Maybe I was a little better at it later on, but it took. I'll tell you what, it took me so many years to come to a point. Now, actually, guys, your mom and I will sometimes not take the interstate when we're going somewhere and go back roads and enjoy the scenery on back roads. And I'm serious. I'm serious.
That
How
doesn't
about
compute
that?
in my brain,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
awesome. Congrats.
It's a little different. You got toddlers in the car where it's like,
yeah,
okay,
True that.
yeah,
True
yeah.
that. It is that. But see, but then with toddlers, you still, I mean, like, an 8-hour trip is 10 hours. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times and that kind of thing.
Let's look at the parallels in life, because
Yeah.
you think about if you're taking a long trip, even for like you're getting on a plane and all that stuff or whatever. I think always the mindset is like, okay, well, that's a travel day. So you know what I'm saying? Like, so you think like, well, that day's kind of wasted, not wasted, but like it's a travel day. You're not really getting anything done. In the parallel to that in our journey, what we're working towards in our lives is to like think that, well, this is just, I'm traveling to where I want to be. So this is kind of a throwaway.
That's right.
And that's what
That's
that's
a
kind of
great
what we're
point.
talking about here is
It's a
how do we get
throwaway.
it to make it to where the journey's not just a throwaway, that's a travel day. That's
So the key for me is to stay focused on getting rid of the when I's. When I do this, when I do that in my thought processes, so that when I get rid of the when I's, I'm more likely to not see those days as throwaway days, but to see those as important. One thing I noticed in this whole thing with enjoying, only shooting for the destination, not enjoying the journey, is who gets hurt the most, and what gets hurt the most is my relationship with other people. And honestly, I don't know why that makes me cry, but my producer knows that can happen in a spur of the
A
moment.
lot of things do.
Yeah. It's sad
Yeah.
because it means you miss a moment. Most of the time, the throwaway means you miss the moment with the people you're on the journey with. When you're in a hurry, you miss it with the people you're on the journey. You wake up one day, your children are grown, and you go, wait a minute. Did I enjoy the journey enough? And you go back. I would probably say, as a pastor and so forth, is so many times I see people who regret it, parents that regret, and what they most regret is that they did not enjoy the journey. And they could only think about when my child is grown up and I don't have to fool with this anymore, which slows me down in whatever way, shape, or form. Now, I have not thought like that all my life about it, and I have enjoyed journeys. I've enjoyed the journey, and I did try to savor. And in parenting, not on the road now, guys, but in parenting, I did try to savor each moment with you guys so that I would try to remember to enjoy 2 years old and all the things that come with that instead of talking about the terrible twos. The people that talk about their children being in the terrible twos are normally the people that are not enjoying the journey, in my opinion. Teenagers. I remember, for example, my dad's older sister saying to him in my presence when I was preteen. They were older than him, and so they had teenage children. They would say, "Paul, you just wait until you have teenagers." And I'll never forget what my dad said in my presence. It still warms me to hear it, and I'm 67 years old. He said, "I look forward to the day when my children are teenagers." And I have said before, and I believe firmly, that it's one of the reasons why when I got to be a teenager, I didn't think I had to act stupid. I didn't think I had to act crazy, is because I knew that my dad was going to enjoy, my parents were going to enjoy that moment in my life too. Instead of dreading the teenage years, they enjoyed the teenage years with us, and they demonstrated that. So now I'm really going on and rock, butt in here, guys. But the enjoying the journey and destination has so many implications for us, our own mental health, I think, especially our relationships with other people. And finally, I would say our relationship with God.
You know what? This actually happened to me, and I didn't think this would be a part of this episode. Actually happened to me this past week. That the Lord spoke something to me that was pretty mind blowing for me. So we have. I'll try to keep this a long story short here. We've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. They enjoy being outside. Can't play out front in our house. Our driveway's a little bit sloped. Nothing bad, but it just doesn't work for that. And the same thing with our front yard. It just kind of slopes down to the road. So front yard's not really an option. And our backyard is just a wreck. If it was a car, our dogs have totaled it. And we want to at some point fix that, because our kids got to be able to have a better place to go outside. They can still play in the backyard, but it's one of those things where it's a little bit of a mess that Michaela or I have to be out there, you can't go outside without mom or dad, and that kind of thing. And they're going to start to get to the age where they should be able to go play in the backyard, by themselves here in a little bit. And so we were talking about, being able to get that done. It's going to take a lot of money, and we know that, but we kind of, what we have available would cover it. But I've always been, I've gotten into like some personal financial literacy lately, and doing a whole lot better with that, like taking care of our money better than I used to when I was younger. And so I've always been of this mindset. It's like that what we have is what we have, and we're gonna have it. And now I'll save up. This is our zero, and then we'll start saving up for the yard. And I was lamenting it the other day, like a dummy, and in prayer. It's like that. Like, I want to make this happen sooner than. And he didn't say, you've got the money already. That's not what, it's like, even though I knew that was a part of what he was saying, but what he told me was like, hit me over the head like a hammer. When he said, I can help you. He said, I'll make sure that you'll make some more money during the rest of your life. What he didn't say, I'll make you a ton of money. He's like, I'll help you make more money. He was like, but you can't get those years. He said, I can't give you those years back. And I mean, I was like, it was in somebody else's backyard in at a kid's birthday party, and like, running my shirt up to my face, and like, oh yeah, I'm just playing with my shirt, not crying, but like thinking like, I can act like, I can hoard what I got and and not use it, or I can enjoy the journey, make sure I enjoy the journey with my kids, because it's great if I can build a great kid-friendly backyard when my oldest son is 10. That's great. That's all. That's awesome. That's fantastic. But why would I build it when he's 10 when I can build it when he's 4?
So I hear you saying, and it's such an important principle, invest in the journey. Don't just invest in the destination. Don't just invest in that. Invest in the journey.
Because I know what would happen 5-6 years from now, whatever it may be. I'd be sitting there thinking about it, and it's great. And then I would be thinking about, why didn't we do this?
So is that
6 years ago?
Is fixing your backyard an expenditure really, or is it really an investment?
Yeah.
From a perspective, it really is a change of mind, and so this understanding to enjoy the journey and the destination keeps us from hurrying it up so we can make more money, so we can do this, so we can do that. Instead of go ahead and invest what you have in the journey, and the destination will take care of itself. And I have learned that in my life, and I'm telling you what, life is so much more rewarding. Just day in and day out. The reward is not one day when I retire. Okay, so I'm retirement age. I am very grateful that I didn't wait till retirement age to begin to enjoy the journey. I cannot even tell you how bitter that would be for me if I would say, well, after all these years now, I'm enjoying the journey. I was able to back then, and to enjoy along the way. Enjoy going to Kenny's. Oh yeah, baby. When we go to Atlanta
that's a
and
deep
we're eating
cut
at
right
Kenny's,
there.
we could. That's like a whole episode right there. Enjoy Kenny's.
Kenny's is
And
not a whole episode.
No.
That would take 10 minutes.
That would
cover.
take 10 minutes. Yeah, it's a restaurant that
Was
a restaurant.
was
yeah.
a restaurant.
Long story, but anyhow, as we sat in there in this restaurant, we did enjoy the journey. It was fun. It was laughable, even though it was a really awful restaurant.
But we knew what. But we did it because we knew what it would be.
We do. That's
Because
right.
we knew, and I don't mean like we knew what it would be when we walked in the door.
No, that's
I'm
right.
saying we knew what it would be like what is happening right now.
That's right.
Like we knew it was something. It was one that we would not
Yeah,
forget.
like
We
we're
would
gonna
never
stop
forget.
at this bad buffet.
A really bad buffet.
Take a picture in front of the sign. It's gonna close its doors very soon.
Yeah.
And it did.
And it did. But I think we all knew. Like, if you'd asked us while we were right after that picture got taken,
Yeah.
is this something that y'all are gonna remember in 10 and 20 years? You would say absolutely, because we knew what we were doing when we were stopping there. Like we saw that terrible looking restaurant on the road, and we were like, it's
we gotta do this.
and it's a buffet. Okay, yeah, stop.
In an old Shoney's
Yeah,
building.
Also, it was just the three of us, so we
Yeah.
knew
Yeah,
we could
our
do
our wives weren't there, so we had kind
Now,
of carte
I would say
blanche
that your
on where
wives,
we were
if I
going.
remember, though, they enjoyed the pictures you sent them.
They
from
loved the
it.
story.
They loved
yeah.
the story, yeah.
But
Well, I think about this. Okay, so let's think about. We're gonna in a few weeks. Some of us we're gonna go our annual trip to Atlanta for a Braves game. All right, along with your two brother-in-laws, my two son-in-laws, Jeremy and Brian. Shout out to those guys. And it's an annual trip. Think how much more fun the trip is, because we always stopped at exit 19 years ago, and now we always stop at Buc-ee's. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you build into this instead of hurrying up and how quickly can we get to the Brave Stadium. We incorporate, and how much more fun that is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much more fun.
Yes, and for the Bucky haters out there, and you think it's overrated, we get it. We like
It's okay.
But that's fine. It's
But you could be wrong. It's okay to be
it's
wrong.
a part. It's a part of what.
it's a
Of
part
what
of
we do.
getting there.
That's
It's a part of
exactly
going.
right. It's a journey. It's part of the journey
Yeah.
now. And you got to stop and
Yeah.
do this. You got to stop at these. You have to build those things. So sometimes the way you enjoy the journey is you build certain things in to be sure that it's a buffer between you and only going for the destination.
And do we have a couple more minutes? Okay. I kind of want to pivot to the next.
Please.
I think because we've talked about enjoying the journey, and I think there's another aspect of this journey that we want to make sure we take with us. And I actually heard a preacher the other day about this very subject, and it struck me. He was talking about really the journey destination thing. I don't think he was using the exact words, but it really is that we're gonna need some of the lessons that we learn on that journey. We're going to need that when we arrive to our destination. So some of the things that God is wanting us to learn as we're going to where we're going, you're going to need that to do what you need to do when you get there. Think about it for people who, whatever journey you're out there for. Look, there's people out there who are wanting, maybe single, wanting to be married, parents, or, married couples wanting to be parents, whatever, trying to dig yourself out of a financial hole, breaking a family curse. I don't know. But there's these things that he's teaching us now are things that we're going to need and not even just for that destination, but it's like it builds us, it builds who we are. It's thing so we can miss out on a lot of the stuff that that God is, you know, and I know some people have problems with if you mention a pastor, they think you agree with everything that they've ever said, and I'm not doing that here. Just want to say that, but Stephen Furtick talked about a time when he was at when he was getting ready to preach a message, right? And he was in the bathroom, he was washing his hands, and he had to get out there because the countdown clock was on, and he had to start a sermon. He's sitting there washing his hands, and a melody to a song comes along. And I don't remember what song it is, but you know, his church, Elevation Church, has a worship band, and it eventually, but it became the basis for a song that they still sing today, I think. And he talks about at first he was like, I don't have time for this. Well, you know, I'll think about this later and all that stuff, whatever. But then he really like stopped and he was like, okay, I got to remember this. And then he remembered it, and he said to this day he can't remember the message that he preached that Sunday, but the church that he is at now still sings that song to his day, to this day. If he had not stopped and took that down to remember what, or to whatever God was saying, like, hey, I want this, I want you to remember this, you know, he wouldn't have that the church never would have received that song. It would have he would have just been so focused, laser focused on what he had to preach and what he had to tell people, when God was sitting there right there trying to tell him something in that moment. So
yeah, that's
To piggyback on that,
go ahead.
as a young preacher, I was only concerned about being sure that I preached a sermon and I couldn't wait to the destination. So I enjoyed the destination, i.e. getting behind the pulpit and preaching. What has changed for me over the years is I now enjoy preparation for that sermon. In connecting with what you said, Derek, is I enjoy the preparation for that sermon. And frankly, I sometimes enjoy the preparation now more than I do the preaching. And I don't think that's a negative thing. I think it's a very positive thing. Is I enjoy the learning that I'm taking as I study and as I prepare, and I get excited about being able to communicate it. But it's not like I can't wait until that happens. I don't panic about that. I'm not anxiety ridden about what's it going to be like when I get up there. And I'm telling you, it makes you just enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey in terms of with the people you're teaching and so forth. So maybe it's why Jesus said, "Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you will find rest unto your souls." Because the opposite of hurry is rest.
Yeah. And I one of the things that struck me is both of you were talking too is kind of something that we've dealt with a lot, or I've dealt with a lot in hearing some things, you know, in church over the years. And a lot of times we get focused on what we want to know or think about what God is doing. And, you know, a lot of times we'll use the terminology like what God's going to be doing in the next season or the next season.
Yes.
You know, God is preparing you for.
yeah, it's an obsession.
And
That wears me out every time I hear it.
So something that came around for me, and you know, share it with everybody, is like that season that God is preparing you for, you're like today. Like there's a reason in the Bible it talks about not worrying about tomorrow. You know, so what
right.
God is preparing you for is what you're doing.
Is it fair?
It doesn't mean that I can't have hopes, dreams, aspirations, and be excited about what the Lord is going to do. That's not what we mean at all. But if I only care about what's he going to do next, well, then he's going to do that thing, and I'm going to be like, well, what's he going to what does he have for me next? What does he have for me?
Here's
next?
the principle: if you don't enjoy this season, you won't enjoy that season.
That's correct.
And I think, and that's something that I had to,
Because you're always working for the next
That's
one.
correct.
and that's something that I had to come through, because I have a tendency to get stuck in that
Me
mindset.
too.
Oh, yeah.
In church, work, any
Home,
yeah,
travel,
everywhere.
you name it. Whatsoever state, Paul said this. He said, I've learned to be whatever state I am to be content. Philippians, the book of Philippians, Apostle Paul said, whatever state I'm in, I've learned to be content. And when you're enjoying the journey, you can be content. If you're not, you're never content.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we can really take that in and say that, where we are right now is where we're meant to be. So
That's right.
where you are right now is where you're meant to be. And I think that's it.
I like it.
We're going to talk more about that in the coming
I can't
days,
wait.
I know, but content with where we are and where the journey that God has us
And
on.
I can't wait to tell Uncle Daryl's story about that as we
Okay.
continue.
I love
Yeah, we'll get to it. Thank you so much for listening to Preacher in the Hat. We love having you with us. Visit preacherinthehat.com. You can follow us all over the place from right there. So thank you so much for being with us. As always, for Derek, Steve, Chris behind the cameras, my name's Eric. This has been Preacher in the Hat, and we will see you